is my friend.
Ah,
How are you doing?
I'm here, I'm present and navigating through some emotional things well enough to be here and be present and to be aware. So, yeah, how are you doing? It's nice to see you. It's good to be with people who love the Lord and vibrate on that love frequency. So building
Yeah,
up and edifying. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. How are you doing?
I'm good. My day is almost over,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I've been in the shops most of the day, so my energy is like
Okay.
all up there. So we
All
can
right.
bring it down a
Yeah,
little
we'll
bit.
bring it down. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Let's do
yeah.
that first then. We'll just bring it down because we just need to breathe. So let's take a nice full breath in. Just let it go with an open mouth. That's my dog in the background. I don't know if you can hear him, but he's breathing with us too. Nice breath in. Let it go. Let's just do one more because it feels so great. Thank you. Breath of life. Breathing in and acknowledging God in this breath and letting it go. Surrendering all that we think that we are. That's better. Mm, good.
How soothing.
Yeah, so I was wondering if we should dive right in today. But there's been a significant event in our family that feels of smacks of abandonment and rejection and misunderstanding, and it's been a shock. And I won't say the details, but it's allowed me to process a lot of how sometimes we feel that even when we give our best, that our best isn't good enough, that our best sometimes isn't even noticed or appreciated because it doesn't line up with what another person values and wants to take from you. And of course it brought me back to thinking about Jesus and how really nobody understood what he was giving when he gave up his life. Even the ones who loved him, even the ones who were intimate with him, they didn't understand. And I think that the most intimate one, Mary Magdalene, I believe it was her, she who was waiting at the garden when he rose and he walked out of the tomb and she mistook him. She didn't recognize him. And it just tells me that form is not what we are to attach to. And he said that to her. He said, Mary, don't cling to me. Don't cling to me. Don't cling to the flesh. Don't cling to what you see manifested. I'm invisible. God is invisible. That is what we must cling to and what we must remember. So when we see ourselves reflected in other people, sometimes it appears to us as though the other person is our adversary, is our enemy, is the one who is robbing us of joy. Um, and if we can begin to examine that as that person is just merely reflecting what is inside of me, because those feelings that arise when it feels like someone is provoking you, those feelings are what are they're guides. They're there to tell you that there's something that is out of alignment with truth within me. So um, it's a deep lesson to learn, but it's a very valuable lesson to learn. But I think in the midst of all of that, when we are in the place where we can see that this other person is merely a reflection of what's inside of me, then what do we do with the feelings? And can we be authentically loving with the other person in the midst of having these dark feelings and hurtful feelings. And how do we navigate through that? So this is where I'm at today.
That's a
Deep.
interesting place to be at.
It's good. It's very, very good because
It
it
is
gives
a,
me an intimate perception of what Jesus went through.
yes, it's a very, oh my goodness, it is. But I want to, I kind of, what does it look like? Because many times I don't, what, and I agree with what you're saying, is when we, first of all, I want to say sorry that you are going through this. You know, I'm really sorry that this is your portion at the moment, and that this is a part of what's happening in your life. I can see that that it's heavy on you. And on the one hand, I want to say is don't shrug it off as this is nothing. Don't try to make it okay that, you know, what it's not as bad as it is. It is as bad as it is, you know,
Yes.
and I honor you for just smiling through it and still seeing it for what it is. But
Mm,
I think for me, sometimes it is what you're saying is so true, is it is a reflection of what is in me. But what is in me and what is reflecting is sometimes looks different than what I think it is.
yes.
Is there a is there something that you see in this person that is reflecting in you and like, hold on, this looks different than, because
Yes.
we recognize it as it's reflecting, but what it is reflecting and what the feeling in me is might look different. So if I don't know what to look for, I might not recognize it. Does that make
Yes, that's
sense?
beautiful. Yes, 100%. And we often will attach a story to what we're feeling. We have thoughts, and then we can create with those thoughts based
Mm-hmm.
on what the sensation is that we're feeling. So, for example, if I'm feeling a sensation, I can say this hurts, or I can just simply say I'm feeling a sensation. And so there's a different perspective in both of those statements. So if I say this hurts, then that must mean that there's an element of suffering and that I don't want this sensation, that it's not benefiting me. And that could be my perception. But if I say that I have this sensation, I'm aware of this sensation, and I acknowledge that this sensation within me is a guide to show me what is inside of me, and that this person allows this sensation within me to arise and make itself known, it takes you from the victim perspective into the higher self where you're seated in heavenly places with Christ. And when we can acknowledge that we have already been crucified with him, right, then we can also allow ourselves to reflect on the fact that we are now dead to sin and death. So, dead to sin and death of our relationship and death of our experience and within the experience, and that we can rise above it. We are actually transcended above it. So that's really my first thing, is not necessarily what is the message, but what do I feel about the feeling, and can I elevate my perspective to look at it from a higher view. Because if we get caught up in wanting to figure it out and understand, then what happens often for me is that I will feel so disappointed that this person doesn't understand my heart, doesn't understand my emotions, and isn't capable of, quote, helping me. It's like when God said to Adam, there's no helper that has been found for you that is suitable. So he put him to sleep, and then took out that feminine aspect from him. So the emotion, the feminine aspect, is making me aware that I'm asleep, if we can put it in that perspective. When we attach a story to it, we are simply blaming the other person, just like Adam did to Eve and Eve did to the serpent. And the blame perpetuates, keeps you in that pattern, keeps you stuck, because you're not actually benefiting yourself. Because ultimately, you want to benefit yourself. You want to rise above, you want to transcend, you want to be a better, loving, supportive person to the other person. You want to be able to lay down your life for that person if you're called to service, if you're called to serving humanity. Um, and so I tend to try to help people to not look at the stories are relevant and it's good to examine them, but it's also good to appreciate that it's not perhaps the best perspective. And the scripture that I tend to keep in my mind is that we are not to lean on our own understanding, that we trust in the Lord with our whole heart and lean not on our own understanding, and yet acknowledge him in all of our ways. And then he makes those paths straight for us to walk into. So that's what I do to try to stay above. And then I will process it from that perspective that I am simply aware of something that is not in alignment with truth. And so, what is the truth? The truth is that I have been crucified with Christ. The truth is that it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me, and that I'm learning to love. I'm learning to lay down my life. I'm learning to be more like him, or actually more like myself, because that's already in me. He's already in me. Holy Spirit is already in me. And so I'm simply remembering him when I do those things. So does that answer that question? Or because I could go on, I could go a little bit
It is,
deeper too.
it
We
is,
can pick it apart.
it is really, I think I see a lot of myself in you. I
Mm-hmm.
think because I'm also, if a situation comes up, I'm the first one to go look in the mirror and
Mm-hmm.
find the fault with me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
the first one that can look in the mirror and say, this was my responsibility. What did I do wrong? Where was my emotions out of line? Where was I? Where was I? Where was I? And I hear a little bit of that in your situation at the moment is where am I
Mm-hmm.
wrong? What is the emotion in me? What is it? But relationships isn't like that. Relationships isn't just me. It isn't just, I don't know what your situation is, but relationships is normally more than one person. It is
Mm-hmm.
normally you and somebody else, you and two or three other people, you and a family, you and a situation. And many times I take responsibility. I go look in the mirror so much and I go look for the fault so much that I take responsibility for some stuff that might not be mine,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yes.
that might not be my responsibility, that might not be quote unquote my fault, that might not
Yeah.
be. But just because I want to be the one that's always in righteousness, the one that's always, I sometimes take responsibility. And I'm not saying that that
It's
is what you are
beautiful.
doing, but I think that there's something in that. So what is and how do we deal with, for me, it's always, I also had a situation just this past week where I kind of
Mm-hmm.
had to, I was the first one in the mirror once again, and
Yes. Oh, my darling.
you
Listen,
know,
I just want to jump right in there, and I want to say, first of all, this is what I hear you saying. This is all my fault. I've done something wrong.
yeah, yeah.
Is that really true?
And I think that's what I'm learning. I think
Hmm.
I think that is what I'm learning, that it's not always all my fault.
Yeah. And
Be-
does that mean that you're taking responsibility? Is that the same as being at fault for something?
not necessarily, not
Hmm.
not necessarily, because once again,
Yes.
life sometimes just happen. Nobody is at fault.
Yes.
Something, it
Yes.
just happens. It's nobody's
Yes.
fault. It's just happened.
Yes.
So
It's
it's,
just God bringing a situation to you for
yes,
you to name it so that it becomes that.
exactly.
That's the opportunity.
Yeah,
That's what life is. And so what I would suggest is to not take blame, because there's nothing to blame. It's like when Adam said, I'm naked and I'm ashamed. I heard you coming, but I was ashamed because I'm naked. And God said, who told you that you were naked? Who told you? So who told you that it was your fault?
yeah.
Who
and and
told you
and
that
and,
you're to
and where,
blame?
yeah, and where does that come from? And now I'm learning
Yes.
to
Oh,
navigate it, like, hold on, this isn't my fault. You know what? And this
yes.
situation, maybe if you look in the mirror or just sit for 2 minutes with Holy Spirit, you will recognize that
Mhm.
You might be a little bit out of line or out of, and that's something that I'm learning now. But what
Mhm.
I, in my situation, and I don't want to kind of, you know, go away from where you're at, but in my
No, let's
situation,
let's dive into
I
yours.
I had to step away, that I wouldn't respond emotionally because I was ready to be emotional about this and I was ready to, and I had to step away, that I wouldn't. I was like,
It's
I'm
brilliant.
going to have wisdom
Mm.
here, Lord. I'm just going to step away, that I won't don't react from a place of emotions. And the
Mhm.
interesting thing is, as the days kind of went past, God just sorted out itself.
Yes,
You
yes,
know, it was
yes,
like this tied knot that if I had responded emotionally, it would have been an explosion.
yes,
But as I kind of stepped away and I just like, I'm just going to let this unfold itself, it was like this
yes.
knot just untied itself. And it was just like,
Ah,
how
just
beautiful
breathe.
is
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
You know,
yes, yes.
and there's something about, and I think that is kind of what I'm trying to get to in you know, is we are all people, and if we all serve
Mm,
God, you know, like
mhm.
we said last time, if if He wants His will and I want His will, we can't miss each other. And if
Mhm.
you want His will and He want you to have His
Yes.
will, you know, and the three of us together want His, we're not going to miss it.
Mm. Yes, very true, very
You
true.
know,
But it does start with you, right? It starts with you because the other person, although they might love God and they might love, certain things, might not be at that level that they're aware or they're conscious that they're awake to the fact that God's in that particular situation.
yeah.
They might not be at that level and they might perceive it from a lower level that it is your fault,
Mm.
right? And they might actually provoke you to believe that it's your fault because we're not perfect, and there are things that we feel and that we do that aren't necessarily what we would consider to be loving. But even that, I think that we need to step away from. I think that we need to let go of our understanding of what we think love is, because it brings me back to Jesus in the temple where he made the whips and he was whipping people, because I'm sure people were talking about that after, like, what a jerk. Who does he think he is? He's this big rabbi who's got all these people thinking he's, the Messiah, and he comes after me with a whip and he, you know, gets my work day all in a kerfuffle. Now I've made no money, and who is this guy, right? And so on the surface that doesn't appear to be very loving. And I think that in that moment that Jesus himself was just being human. He was just being himself. He's just allowing whatever is inside of him to come out, and sometimes that happens in a way that seems very, very messy and awkward and hurtful for the other person. But I think the cool thing about Jesus is that he didn't condemn himself. He didn't judge himself, because he just didn't judge. He didn't judge people. He didn't judge himself. He didn't judge according to the flesh, because that's what we look at on the surface. We judge things according to the flesh and we think, well, what a jerk. And I was a jerk. Oh my gosh, what was I thinking? How could I have done that? Oh my gosh. Yes, you have every right to call me this, that, and the other thing. I agree with you and it hurts and I wish I wasn't like that. And we get into that, right? God, why can't you just change me, make me a better person? Um, but Christ is in us, and Christ is that spacious observer, that one who is just completely void of any kind of emotional or human interpretation of the situation in any way for any person. He's full of compassion, right? And grace, but he believes all things and hopes all things and endures all things, and love, and he never fails. Love never fails. Christ is love. Love is God. And so when we look at it from that perspective of love, if we let go of our understanding that love is actually bigger than what I see here, and so I might not have been the most, quote, loving person in the perception of humans around me or my own perception, Christ in me still loves me and says, you got this. You got this. You're doing great. I'm so proud of you. Because the objective isn't about being perfect, it's about um, feeling perfectly loved. Because perfect love casts out all fear. And when we're fear, the Bible says fear has to do with punishment. So when we get into that pattern of, oh, I was such an idiot, blah, 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 it's that we're afraid of punishment. We're afraid of the other people hurting us. coming back at us, retaliating, telling other people about who, how horrible we are, and then we have to lose our identity and our reputation. Those are the things that punish us, right? That's how we perceive this, and those are the things that we're afraid of. If we are perfectly loved and we know that we're perfectly loved and we're not going to be punished, right? Because perfect love casts out all fear. There's no condemnation for me. Who's condemning me? The other person might be, but if I don't condemn myself, I'm like Christ. I'm like Jesus. Okay, I'm not perfect. I'm a human being manifesting evil because God said, let us create man in our image, knowing good and evil, right? So I might be manifesting these things that are darker, but it's not for the purpose of being a jerk and, hurting other people. It's for the purpose of my learning what perfect love is. And that perfect love starts with me. I don't condemn myself. Yes, I would like to be a little bit more loving and supportive for people, but at the same time, I don't have to give them my energy. I don't have to give them my guilt. I don't have to give them my shame. I don't have to allow them to use that against me to take my life from me, because that's what Jesus in the flesh died for, so that we could eat his flesh and drink his blood so we can be purified by what he's experienced. So it really is about awareness, because you mentioned that, when that moment comes up and you felt the emotion and you really wanted to lash out. And you know what? If you did, you did. There's really nothing bad about that, honestly. I think you need to look at it from a different perspective. There's nothing to take blame for or shame for. You're just being human, being real. But you were conscious enough, you were aware enough of love to say, I need to step away from this situation. And that's where you're more awake, perhaps, than another person who reacts unconsciously, just based on their emotion, based on the triggers that they feel in their nervous system, and they respond, in that inappropriate way. So you were mindful, you were present, you were aware. And what that means is you were acknowledging God, you were trusting God with your heart, right? In that moment, it was your whole heart, because your whole heart was kind of divided all over the place. But you saw light and you knew this isn't the best way to treat the situation. I need to remove myself. So in that, you need to be grateful, because
Mm,
that's where Christ met you. That's where you saw Christ.
mm.
And that's where you were able to remember Christ and be like Christ. And then you can reevaluate it from that perspective. So I think that's just what Jesus did. He probably like whipped those people and then he went off to be by himself, like he often did, sat there with the Father and said, wow, I'm not sure if I want to do that again.
What the heck just happened?
Yeah.
I'm sure he
Yeah.
asked that a few times.
Yeah.
Oh, what just happened? Oh, wow.
Hmm.
So if we talk loving people, I think love is such a strong, it is such a misunderstood concept.
Hmm.
And I think concept might be the right word, because love is so many things.
Hmm.
But when it comes to exactly what you say, is coming to that place of self-love and having an understanding of how do you self-love? How do you know that I'm okay, I'm loving myself now? Is there
Hmm.
something that you measure yourself against and say, you know what, I'm okay, and I'm making these decisions because this means that this is the boundaries in which I'm willing to love myself.
Hmm.
How, it's such a broad concept, and it's such
Hmm.
a it thing at the moment. Oh, you got to self-love. You just have to scroll through two videos on social media, and there will be one out of the two will be about self-love. But it
Hmm.
is such a broad concept. But what does it look like for you?
So what I'm learning is that ultimately it has to do with my energy. It has to do with,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, because what happens is in a situation, in a relationship with those that you're very close to, for example, in your immediate family, those who are closest to you are the ones who seem to provoke you the most, because you can be comfortable with them and you can be real with them and you can be transparent with them, because you know that for the most part they won't forsake you. And so you have this element of safety, because really that's what we do, is we strive for safety. And I think that is, loving yourself is knowing that you're safe in your body no matter what happens. That's a big part of loving yourself, is cultivating that sense of safety in the body, because what happens is when we're in situations that feel hurtful, we do split up, we divide, we dissociate, we want to get out of the body, we want to get ourselves out of the situation, we think about other things, we do all these different things to get out of the body. Being in the body and being safe, is a really good place to be. Um, but so in a situation where you're safe in your family, but then you're triggered, that trigger makes you feel unsafe. That trigger makes you feel unloved, because that trigger is fear. That trigger is a threat. It's something telling you you need to be aware of this, and you're alerted, and your nervous system gets primed up. And do I need to do this or this or this or this? That's when the decision making, the options are there. And sometimes we don't see the options because it's just an automatic, autonomic reaction to the situation, to the threat, and we'll just run away and hide. But if we can be present enough in the situation to watch ourselves and examine the emotions that come up, and not attach to them, but be just aware of them and aware of our body, aware of how we're moving through it, and give ourselves compassion. So if I give myself compassion and awareness, I'll make this personal. So if I'm in a situation where I'm really disappointed that my husband doesn't want to help me with the dishes, he would rather be out doing something else in the moment, and he's not there right away, then if I'm present with myself and I feel safe enough in my body to be aware of all of these emotions in a detached kind of a way, I can see, oh, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling rejected, and I'm really hurt. And I could point the finger and blame it at him. But I could also say, okay, I want to blame him, but it's not really him. So what's going on inside of me? And I'm feeling this emotion. How do I love myself with this feeling? And I just simply make a choice to say, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to have this. It's a human response. It's a human emotion, and you're okay. And I deliberately take that breath, because that breath, to me, now I've created this grid and this understanding for myself that that breath is the Holy Spirit. It's the holy breath of life. And it's the same spirit that raised Christ from the dead that gives life to my mortal body. So what I know now, when I take that breath, I'm giving life to my body where it feels like I'm in death, because that's what that feels like, is like there's a death there. There's a death in my marriage. There's a death in somebody wanting to be my helper. And my reaction would be to turn it back on him and blame him and say, you're not helping me. So how do I love myself in that moment? How do I give myself the help that I feel that he's not giving me? Is simply to be present and mindful of the emotions moving through me, and recognizing that, well, these sensations are not who I am either. Who I am is Christ, who I feel as this spaciousness, as this non-judgmental presence of really nothingness. There's nothing that's, you know, shaking him. And that stability of that void, of that spaciousness, is what anchors me so that I can love myself more fully. I mean, that's basically it in an energetic way. I'm not giving my husband my flesh and blood to eat, but I'm not eating his flesh and blood either. I'm not taking his energy away from him by being angry at him and blaming him. And I'm not giving him my flesh and blood in the sense that I'm not giving him my emotions to eat. And I'm not laying down my life in a way that makes me a martyr, because it's not my blood that he needs to drink that cleanses his conscience clean. I don't need to point out his sin. So in that moment, I don't have to eat his energy and take his life away from him. I simply rest in the fact that this has already been completed in the body of Christ, and I can eat his flesh. That to me is eating his flesh and drinking his blood. So I'm cleansing my own conscience that I'm not doing anything wrong in this moment. I'm staying present with everything, and I'm not reacting out of my emotions. I'm being mindful, and I choose to be loving, because first I'm loving myself in this situation. When I can love myself, then I'm not driven to perform in order to be loved. So I'm not driven to, do something for this person that seems loving, that really is taking away from my life and my energy. So I'm actually giving to myself when I love myself first in that moment, when I examine my heart, when I say, okay, I'm feeling let down here, but I love you and I have compassion for you. This to me really is what it talks about in Malachi, where it says to bring in the tithe into the storehouse so that there's meat in my house. That to me is now Christ's meat, his flesh, his blood is in me, so that I can give it to my husband to eat instead of eating my own energy and my own life. I don't have to give that to him. I don't have to pretend to be something that I'm not. Does that make sense? Like, are you feeling what I'm saying? Because it's an on an energetic way, so it's a bit difficult to articulate, but it's not about doing, and it's not about a strategy of steps.
Yeah.
It's really
And I think
feeling.
and I think I'm struggling to hear what you are saying. I'm going to be honest. I'm struggling, but as I'm listening to you and I'm trying to just get a grasp on what you're saying, I also recognize my programming,
Mhm,
and I recognize how what you are saying is kind of clashing against my programming,
mhm,
and I'm like, I can see that my programming is like, but what about me? you know,
mhm,
and I
mhm,
can see that my programming is like, hold on, but what about right and wrong?
mhm,
How do we, if he's supposed to wash the dishes, then he's supposed to wash the dishes. Now I'm here
mhm,
where you are coming from, but there's also a natural programming that I'm like, okay, it's great to have the spiritual connection, but how do I down that? How do I bring that
mhm,
into a situation that
mhm.
we are not angry with each other, that we don't
Yeah,
get um you know, and I'm, yeah, I don't know if I don't know if you hear where I'm
yeah, I do.
struggling a
I
little
do.
bit to hear you. Yeah.
Yes, yes, I do. And it brings us back to the beginning of our conversation where I said, there are things within us sometimes that aren't perceived as valuable because the other person doesn't see them and they want something else from you. So in that moment where he's not meeting me by washing dishes for me, then what I'm saying is you're not valuable to me because you're not doing what I expect you to do. And I'm not choosing to see the value in him. So the things that he does for me is he is a constant support and love and encouragement and comfort to me. He is a rock to me of stability and certainty that I know that he will be there for me no matter what I'm like. These are the things that he offers me that he might not even appreciate about himself, but I know it gives him joy to be my husband. And that's often where our life is what is it that gives me joy. So it gives me joy to be a mom and a wife and a homemaker and to do dishes, but in that moment I don't feel that my joy is being fulfilled, and so I feel like I need to reach out and grab that joy that's inside of him and pull it in. I need to eat it. I need to eat his
Oh.
energy. Yes, I need to make it
Mm.
my own. And that's the temptation that we face is you're not meeting me, you're not meeting my needs and fulfilling me, who I am, my destiny, my identity, which is what Adam was saying to Eve. You let me down. You made me eat it. But really, Eve is a
Whew.
part of him.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, hold on. So what I'm hearing, because the original question is how do you experience the self-love? Now, the
Mm-hmm,
interesting thing about what you just said is like, we can't stand alone, if I'm hearing you correct. Even
mm-hmm,
in loving ourselves, we
mm-hmm,
can't stand alone. In loving ourselves, we are in relationship with other people.
Hmm.
And even in me being in a place in recognizing Christ in me, I am not separate from you or
Yes.
where I'm currently staying with my family or whenever I'm wherever. I am in relationship. We can't. And then it comes back to awareness almost all the time.
Yes.
It comes to being in the now all the time. It's recognizing where I'm at and where do I pull that energy from.
Hmm.
Um,
That's
wow.
it. That's it exactly.
That's pretty much is am I mature enough to recognize that there's a need
Mhm.
of an energy right now and that I can tap from the Christ in me in that moment
Yes.
and
That's it.
not look for that energy from my brother or you from a
Hmm.
husband or children or whoever else.
Yes.
In this
Yes.
moment I am mature enough to see the need but tap into Christ to fill that need.
Yes.
And that is
Yes. See, and that's a much deeper way of laying down your life, because I think that your programming is similar to mine. And I think in the past I would have said, fine, you know, in my mind, I would have just not, I'm not going to fight. He's my husband, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But in my heart, I would be so full of hurt and resentment and bitterness that it actually is still taking his life away from him. I'm not laying down my life for him. I'm still taking his life from him. But this is a little bit deeper because I'm turning it back to me and I'm recognizing that Christ is in me. He's my fullness. He's my everything. He's my source. He's who I am. My identity is his and me in him, him in me. It's no longer Susan who lives, but Christ lives in me. And the life I live in the flesh, I live by faith as a son of God. And so that is where I need to turn my energy, my source, and I need to eat his flesh and drink his blood and recognize he's suffered in all ways the way that I have suffered. And he's opened up the access of the mind of Christ so that all experiences that are similar to me and my circumstance right now, in all of those who have gone before me, I can energetically also invite that in to support me in that moment so that I can feel the love for myself and the compassion for myself, even in this moment where it feels I look around and I don't see the abundance, I only see lack and I only see suffering. But when energetically I feel, okay, it's okay. Christ is here with me, and I feel that spaciousness pouring into me. That is the stability, that is the rock that I can stand on, and I can begin to see things from the higher perspective that actually I am provided for because his energy is here with me, and I don't have to do things in the way that I thought that I needed to do them by, quote, laying down my life and not arguing. I can lovingly talk to him and I can come back, but it really depends on me, like how, and I can choose. If I don't want to be in this situation anymore, if I feel like it's just not benefiting me at all to be in this situation, I can say, you know what, there's the door, I'm done. You don't want to help me do dishes, goodbye. And I can do that. And there's nothing bad or wrong about that, to be honest. Like there's nothing bad or wrong about that. But the Bible says that if that unbelieving person is happy to stay with you, then just stay with them. And so as long as you have grace to stay and it's benefiting you, because I feel it's a benefit to be in this difficult situation because it does drive me deeper. It drives my roots down deeper. So I'm forced to get those rivers of living water from a deeper, darker place where there's treasures hidden in that dark place. So this difficult situation, and like it's not just dishes, you know what I'm talking about. Like
this
this
is this is
this
just the easy example.
yeah, this is just the easy example because really I could put up with the dishes. But you know,
Yeah,
there are other issues that
yeah.
are very, very, very dark and difficult to face. And it just feels like, you know what, I don't want to be here. And I think that you can make those choices that right now, this is not benefiting me. That's what, you know, the whole thing about eating food sacrificed to idols or doing something that seems so heretical, you know, so blasphemous is that if it's benefiting you, then take off that heresy label. But if it's not benefiting you, then find something that will, right? And so you can step out of the situation and examine your heart deeper because it really is about you. And when you can recognize that you're okay with Christ, that there's no condemnation for you, you actually begin to enjoy being around these people that sometimes are difficult for you, and you see them in a different way. You see Christ in them. So, yeah.
And that's really what we started with once again, like you said,
Mhm.
is if we start with ourselves, if we have an understanding of Christ, and I'm just looking myself in the mirror once again, but having understanding the manifestation of Christ in washing the dishes or making a
Mm.
life decision or whatever, suddenly that manifestation is fruitful.
Yes. Be
And that
fruitful. Yeah.
manifestation comes easily, and there's flow in that.
Yes.
When
Mhm.
we tap from that place of self-love, that isn't really self-love. It is really loving the Christ in us.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
And
it
allowing
is
Christ in you to love you.
to love you, you know,
Yeah.
um, because that is really what it is. Yeah, I think that's really what it's about. Because yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not all that pretty. Rather love the Christ in me.
Mm.
He's
But there is value in also acknowledging that, well, if Christ actually loves me that much, then there must be something lovable about me. So I'm going to
Mhm.
love that too.
Yep, it's all one
Yes.
thing. In my
Yes. It's
for
all
me,
one thing.
it's all one thing.
Yes. Yes.
If you love me, you love him. If you
You
love
got
him,
it.
it's yeah. No, we are like that. We are like that.
Exactly.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, what a beautiful wow, what a beautiful. What is in that cup?
Coffee. Just
Coffee.
coffee. Yeah. You can't see it.
First first thing in the morning.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I only have one cup a day.
Oh wow.
Um, but I love it. I just love it. I just feel like now my day has started.
Do you drink creamers and stuff, or is it just how do you
Yeah, I
drink
do.
it?
I have one cream, one milk, and one sugar.
Ah, okay.
It's all about balance. Something magical about the three too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I do coffee in the mornings. I will do 3 cups during the day. So I will. That's my limit. No more than 3 cups. Normally two early in the morning, and then one around 11ish, and then I'm done
Mm,
for the day. But no
mm,
sugar and just
hmm
coffee and cream. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I used to drink it like that too, but then I thought, I need a little bit more sweetness in my life. So
Oh
uh,
goodness. Oh
yeah.
goodness.
You
Yeah.
have to move here. Come and live here. Come and live in Canada. Have coffee together. Just that first one.
in, in the mornings. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hoping and trusting to be back in the States real
hmm
soon. So yeah,
hmm Yeah.
that's
Yeah. That's closer. That's closer. That's good.
I'm aiming, but yeah, I need to figure out how I can visit the States. The
Yeah.
States, Canada, because
Mm.
I actually never checked out how does it work with my visa. Do I need a visa?
hmm
Do
Yeah, probably.
I
You
don't
probably
even
do.
know. So
hmm
I'll need to look at that. I'm
hmm
not like the Americans that you could just
Yes.
go and
Yeah.
come back.
Well, there
My
was the day I remember when when we could just cross the border with our driver's license. We didn't need a passport. That was, of course, pre 9/11.
Yeah,
But that's often my husband and I, when we were dating, we would just jump in the car and go over the border because there were things in the States that were not available in Canada back then, like Walmart or let's see, Target. We don't have a Target anymore, pulled out of Canada, but we did for a short period of time. So it made us feel very it's one with the States, these markers, right?
yeah.
Chick-fil-A,
Oh,
those kinds of things.
Chick-fil-A. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
let's
It's all
not
about
go.
food for me, food and shopping.
Yeah, let's not go to food, but to Chick-fil-A. I
Mm.
was like, you see these videos and you see that Chick-fil-A is the thing. And then when I came to the US, it's actually interesting. When I went to the US the first time in 2022, and when I arrived at the airport, Chick-fil-A was the only shop that had a queue of people.
Oh, wow.
The other shops didn't have any. It was like, okay, this must be as popular as the internet says it is.
Yes. Wow.
And then
Isn't that something?
when I got in front, I was like, okay, this is the most disappointing view I've
Oh,
ever had.
yes.
I was like,
Because it's, well, yeah.
why are people queuing up for this?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
But anyway, maybe I just, yeah.
If you don't know what you're missing, then what you have, you can you can prioritize that way, right? Like if you don't know what else is out there.
Hmm.
So, but for those who have more discerning experiences, then that can be quite a disappointment. I
I
love
will,
Chick-fil-A. It goes to show you how discerning my palate is.
I will the discerning options. I will take that as a compliment.
Ah,
Oh,
yeah,
goodness. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not Michelin grade food. That's true.
Yeah, no, no, no. That's yeah. But even in my sorry, and I don't want to keep going on Chick-fil-A, but even in my standards when it comes to fast food, it was like, yeah. Where's the where's the
Okay,
nearest
so what is what
McDonald's?
is what is your go-to? McDonald, you like McDonald's? Yeah.
And I think if I have to choose, Burger King is probably the better option. I think
Mm,
I like it better.
okay.
But none of them is any good.
Hmm.
No,
Yes, I think they
yeah,
develop into more of a comfort, I think, than yeah,
yeah,
nutrient
yeah,
nutritious support.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, with your family
Ah,
situation,
mm,
I wish you luck and I send you
thank
love.
you. Thank you.
And may the seven spirits of God just guide you
Mm,
through this
yes.
season, and may you
Yes,
have
beautiful. Mm,
peace and absolute just abundance of knowledge on how to deal with it.
mm,
And may God just unknot the situation in such a beautiful way
mm.
that everybody benefits from what is
Yes.
happening. You know, Romans 8 says that all things work together, that everything will work out to his righteousness, to his
Yeah.
justice, to his glory.
Yeah.
Um, so may that be your portion, and may you see how that shift in the next few days.
Yes. 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 Thank you. Thank you.
Hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing my family. Thank you for seeing Christ in all of this. Thank you for your love, which is very supportive, which you freely give. You freely give to me. And that love that you give to me, it comes back to you because that's the love that comes from Christ that doesn't ever stop flowing. And so it's not me taking energy from you. It's simply your choosing to lay down your life for me. Give me those few words, those few moments of your time. That's you laying down your life for me. And I am so grateful and I appreciate it. And I feel it. I feel the richness of that because it does actually, it's one of those things that I do to love myself is to be around people like you who help to raise my frequency so that the vibration of these denser emotions comes up a little bit higher and I don't have to feel them as deeply. So thank you for loving me.
But
I appreciate that.
but as your friend, and thank you for reminding me of that. But as your friend, I would like to call up your frequency. I would
Mm,
like to call you, Susan, up to a higher
mm,
frequency.
yes.
His thoughts are higher than our thoughts.
Mhm.
And I call you to the place where his thoughts are at this
Yes.
point. And I'm
Yes.
calling you
Yes.
into the space where his thoughts are. And I pray that your mind and your spirit will be open to receive the way that
Yes.
he sees where you're at right now. And that in this moment you will see solutions. And in that moment you will see where you need to go, what you need to do, where you need to let go in order for this to work out for the best.
Ah, so, so, so good. I'm telling you, like everything that you're saying is it's just it's prophetic. Like I feel it as though it's coming from my heart into your mouth, it's everything that I've been asking for. Yeah. So you are being Christ to me in the flesh right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
What it
Jesus.
makes me feel is the big thing in that I hear often in my world in the breathwork world is integration, 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 and how do we integrate, integrate? And to me, integration is really, when Paul says that I worship God with my mind and yet my body is a slave to sin. That is the integration where you take these higher frequency concepts of the promises of God, and they then come into the body and they become one with the body. It's the yada, knowing of the truth, where you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. So that integration is, I'm taking these concepts that aren't yet part of who I really am, or how I feel about who I am, rather, and it brings them into my heart, into my body, and that torus of our being. It gets to work on it. These seven spirits of God get to work on it and bring it into my experience in this body, so that I'm one with that. So that to me is integration, where these concepts that, Christ is you in the flesh, to me, that's the concept that's in my mind. But having this experience now brings it into my sphere, so that I can bring that energetically into my heart and be grateful for that and receive that and eat from that. It nourishes me and it becomes part of my body on an atomic, a subatomic level, so that it actually is that food that I know not of. It's not a physical, dense food, but it is the fruit of the tree of life that nourishes me, becomes one with me, with my body. And then it is the spirit of life giving life to this mortal body. So good. Really, this is better than breakfast. I have to plug in my laptop.
Wow.
Mm,
We sometimes, I sometimes forget that there is a, I sometimes forget that there is this spiritual, although I live in that space, I sometimes forget it. Does it make sense? That
mhm.
we are spirit,
Yeah.
but we are body as well. I live in the spirit and I see in the spirit and I be there and I feel things, but sometimes I forget that there's a spiritual space, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is so beautiful that we can only manifest heaven through these bodies.
Mm, yeah.
There's no way
Mhm.
that God can manifest without us. That is why He
Yes.
created us. That is,
Yes.
we are that thing that creates order, that creates
Yes.
everything in the earth. And what I just realized is somehow I always think that I can do it alone. And we've been speaking
Mm,
about relationships since the beginning of the call. Is how important is it that you and I connect and integrate is such a beautiful way. It's such a beautiful way how you just explained it. It's like we integrate, and now the frequency and the vibration
mm.
is on a molecular, I don't know if that's the right word, but a vibrational level where creation
Yes.
can respond.
Yes. Ah, yes.
Wow.
When we agree and we touch anything, that's actually how we touch it. We touch it energetically with the
Yeah.
spirit, and then it becomes something that you can actually touch physically. And it becomes that pattern that
Wow.
recreates reality for us, so that,
Mm.
when life comes around, we see it from a different perspective, that we don't feel that we're at blame or at fault. That actually I'm responsible for creating this, but it's coming from my energy and I can look at it from the perspective of love. So, ah,
Wow.
deep. Yeah,
Wow.
so good.
It is good. Thank you, God. Wow.
Right? Oh, yeah.
The vastness, the vastness of God just
Mm.
continue to blow me away.
Let's just sit in that for a
Mm.
moment. Is that okay? Because
That's
it
okay.
just
Please.
feels so, so, so good. So good.
Yeah,
Feels so
please.
good. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for life. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for knowing full well that others wouldn't be able to appreciate what you had to offer. And yet you could respond with love, that you could look at them and love them anyway, that you could say, today, you can be with me in paradise. And you could just choose to not engage with those who are trying to tear you down or make you want to prove yourself. You just simply were one with the Father, trusting the Father in that moment of probably the most excruciating, humiliating suffering that I would dare say any human being ever chose to endure. And yet through that, through the joy that was set before you, and the joy was this, Mart-Marie and me today, connecting to you in this deeper way to understand love. And that's our heart, just like it was yours, to love all and understand all the dimensions of love, the height, the depth, the width, the breadth, the length. That's what we are here for. That's what we desire. And we're so grateful that we can connect together. It feels so good. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Spirit.
My friend, thank you for today.
Thank you. I
Thank
love you
you.
so much. I'm so grateful for you.
Love you too. Let's do it again soon.
Okay. Blessings on your
Love
sleep.
you.
Sleep well. I love
You
you.
too.
All
You
right.
too.
Bye, darling.
Bye.
And I just wanted to share something that I neglected to share on the call, but it just had to do in regard to how to see a little bit more clearly about the other person when we're hurt by them. So coming back to the example of my husband, so when I look at him and he doesn't want to help me with dishes, then I can quickly judge him as being lazy and uncaring. That's how I judge him. That's how I perceive him in that moment. And my pain is telling me that nobody wants to help me. Nobody's here for me. The truth is that the way that I judge him is how I feel about myself, because I look at him and judge him automatically. My feeling tells me nobody's here to help me, but my judgment of him is how I really feel about myself. So then I need to look at both of those aspects, really. It's both the same coin, because I feel like nobody's here to help me, which is an element of the truth, of that perspective. But deeper than that is my judgment, which is I feel lazy. And so, even though in that moment I might be doing the dishes, my judgment speaks of a truth that's deeper inside of me that I'm afraid to look at. And so when I look at it, I can examine that, oh my gosh, I have judged myself as lazy, and I've actually been lazy, and I've actually enjoyed being lazy, and I actually want to be lazy sometimes. And I've judged that as something bad and evil, something that I need to be punished for. So I can take my breath and say, wow, actually, you don't judge me as being lazy. I've judged myself, so I can take a breath and say, you know what, Susan, sometimes it's okay to be lazy. I don't have to be Martha all the time. I can be Mary. I can just be okay with not doing and being busy. Being busy is not a badge of honor or respect, although it's perceived that way. Sometimes rest is really necessary, and I've judged rest as being lazy. So I let myself go off the hook, and I can also let Jeff off the hook too. So I didn't mention that in our call, but that's worth looking at as well. So blessings, my love.